What's What's up, Unfiltered AF fam? That's unfiltered as fuck. I'm Amber Fernicola, your host, also AF. And I'm so stoked you guys are here. If you've been here before, welcome back, my favorite humans. And if you're new here, hell yeah, glad to have ya. This podcast is where life is loud, raw, real, and, well, pretty unfiltered. Now, one, I love wearing these outrageous things. So if you're watching the video today, hey, we're going to talk a little bit about Olympics. We're going to talk snowboarding and skiing destinations. We're going to talk about training tips for snowboarders and skiers and injury prevention. And if you're not watching video, whatever, it's still going to be a good episode, but I do look a little bit crazy, so if you're not watching the video, you maybe should at least look at the clips on Instagram at unfilteredafpod, or you could check out our YouTube, which is at unfilteredafpod1. But if you follow the Instagram, I have everything linked, YouTube and Spotify, and guys, I have great news. We're coming to some new channels this upcoming week. Before March 1st, I want to have the podcast on numerous channels. March is a very crazy month for me, so I'm trying to batch as much as I can and make sure that I still stay consistent. We're just gonna yap. So first things first, this is my first solo episode with no script. I did mark some notes and outline some things I want to talk about. I've also sent myself some stuff on Instagram that I want to reference because, let's just be honest, I am an overstimulated, overwhelmed wall weasel all the time. And sometimes my thoughts get very scattered, regardless of if I take my Adderall prescription or not, which is half a joke, but I am actually prescribed Adderall because the ADHD is so bad. I just don't take it that often. But yeah, so here we go, guys. I'm going to remove this now. I thought it was fun for a second. We are keeping this on. Also, if you do watch these videos, I hope you don't think that this is my real sense of style. I will say you can catch me in the wild with a leather jacket and a sports bra. That is something I do. And this is my real snowboarding gear, my real neck gaiter, for anyone who cares, and my real helmet and goggles. I don't know. I thought it was fun today. I'm like the skater girl who never skated. I snowboarded. And it's so funny because I was actually watching a podcasting clip where this man was talking about how he has to ski because his dad thought snowboarding was uncouth. And today, we're going to talk a little bit about today for 2 seconds, because these are both elements that are going to come into play in this episode, or maybe in this and the next. I haven't decided. It depends on how long I freaking yap for. But, yeah, so today someone was like, "You're a snowboarder?" And they were super judgy about it. And I was like, "Yeah, I'm a snowboarder." I'm like, "Why are you saying it that way?" And they're like, "Skiing's superior." And I'm like, okay, actually, as an adult snowboarder, I have spent the last 2 seasons curious about learning how to ski. I think they're both equally dangerous, right? It's a high adrenaline sport. It's high speed. One mistake can really change your life. And sometimes it's not even your mistake. It's like driving a car, right? Someone else might hit you, and which is something that happened to me in December, but thankfully, knock on wood here, nothing happened injury wise. And it was my fucking cousin. So thank you, cuz he ran into me twice. And the second time I toppled over. It was a steep part of the mountain. I fucking slid upside down, rolled into the trees. Terrifying. Anyway, me and the cuz are Gucci. All is well. But yeah, so we're gonna yap away, Miss Scatterbrain self. Today is the closing ceremony of the Winter Olympics, which is kind of ironic that I plan to talk about the Olympics today. But also, I'm bummed because I haven't watched nearly as much of it as I liked. I've done a lot of watching on YouTube, post events. But I want to chat about it because watching the snowboarders and skiers, I mean, like I said, I'm like a little snowboarding freaking, I don't know. I'm obsessed with it. And it's funny, I don't do anything cool. I'm not bad at snowboarding. I've been doing it for 15 years. 15 years? maybe 16 years actually at this point. I started at 14. So I guess this is 16 years now. But I'm not trying to die, and for some reason I don't know how to land when I catch air. That actually might be a goal of mine. Maybe next season I'll take a lesson to teach me how to jump and land. I do like to take a lesson once a year out in the Alps because I think we develop bad habits and we don't even know it. I did it last year and I really feel like it upped my snowboarding game substantially. I may or may not do it this year, and most of the people I'm going snowboarding with on my big trip are not doing it, so I haven't decided if I want to do it by myself or if I want to spend time with them. But we'll get to that. Yeah, like I said, guys, we're free balling it today. But the point of this podcast when I first wanted to start it was to just basically feel like I'm FaceTiming my best friends and chatting with my best friends and my favorite people. So this was kind of the point. But because it's tough. I know we're really going on tangents right now, but my podcast never really it wasn't supposed to have a niche or direction out the gate. That's the beauty of the name Unfiltered AF. I can really talk about whatever I want. The main focuses are, yes, for people trying to be better in their life. It's like everyone who's on the Hot Mess Express that wants to get off of it, but still wants to be a little bit chaotic and outrageous. That's what this podcast is all about. So we are actually going to start diving into less stories about me and my life and more things that actually help you with dating or travel not so much travel. Like, we talk a lot about travel, and if you want travel recs, like, I guess you can DM me, but I'm not a travel advisor. Even though I probably could be. But, we are going to start talking more about fitness and finance and mentality and all of those things as this podcast evolves. But we spent the first few episodes just kind of talking more about me and my insane background because I feel like that's important. I am one of those people that lives outside the box. I am one of those uncouth people. My brain loves chaos, and I haven't decided. I know chaos isn't good for me, but I haven't decided if I want to give it up completely yet. I want to have my shit together, but it doesn't mean I don't want to do outrageous things sometimes, right? We already know I live for the plot. That's been very obvious in my previous episodes and storytelling. But back to the Olympics. I can't believe it's the closing ceremony today. I have so many things I want to say, right? Like, one, let's talk about curling for 2 seconds. What the fuck is this? I looked it up. Curling actually originated in Scotland. And I feel bad being a hater on these people because to get to the Olympics is a tremendous accomplishment regardless, right? Like, we're going to talk about like habits needed to be like an elite athlete at that level. This is my electrolyte drink, just taking a quick sip because I'm so thirsty. We're going to talk about all of that, but watching these snowboarders and skiers drop into runs that represent 4 years of prep and sometimes takes up their entire identity, definitely I think is something that resonates with this podcast. To reach such a level of elite status, right? That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to bridge the gap in our habits to get there. You can't really operate solely at a recreational level to achieve that elite status. But yeah, so like, we're going to dive into a few things today. We're going to get a little pop culture-y. Eric Dane freaking died. Oh my God. I've been on this like early 2000s and like 2010s like TV kick lately because I think the world is just heavy and hard, and I think there's a lot of pros to how the world has evolved, but I think there's a lot of cons too, and sometimes I really just miss the good old days. So I've been living in nostalgia. But anyway, let's talk about Olympic energy and executing under pressure. First of all, Eileen Gu. What a baddie. Now I will say this. I've watched a lot of the skiing and snowboarding. I usually like this figure skating too, but I haven't watched as much of that. I don't know all of the athletes' names. Like, I've been doing this thing where it's very ADHD of me, but I'll watch the Olympics, or I'll watch anything really, while I'm doing other things. And if I'm not doing other things, I pretty much wind up taking these impromptu mini naps when I watch things. Like, it's probably not enough stimulation for me to sit down and focus on a TV screen or a Netflix screen or a computer screen. But then, like, I'm also not focused when I'm doing other things. So, but Eileen Gu, 6 Olympic medals, 1 of them gold, 2 of them silver this year. There might have been more. Those are just the ones I'm aware of. I'm sure a lot of you have seen the video of her being interviewed. And I actually want to talk about that because, one, I agree with the internet for the most part. I think she is a bad bitch. I think her response to that reporter was amazing. If you don't know what I'm talking about, it's all over the internet. Basically, a reporter asked her, does she feel like 2 silvers or 2 medals gained, or does she feel like it's 2 medals lost because they weren't the gold? And she laughs at this guy, and it's like, there's one part of me that's like, and again, I don't disagree with this situation, but the internet's very much like, oh my God, this man reporter is like putting this woman down, which maybe could be how it could be perceived. And at the end of the day, like, Eileen Gu is right. She's one of the most decorated free skiers in the world. And she has done very well for herself. And she is doing things that nobody else has ever done. And it is a privilege to earn any medal in the Olympics. So I agree with all that. And I thought her response was just chef's kiss. It was amazing. I do want to say this, and this is my own personal hot take, and I think it might have been a better suited question for a man than a woman because of the climate we live in regards to masculine and feminine. I don't want to say energy because that's not right, but in regards to just like male versus female in anything successful. I, as someone who watches the Olympics, I did kind of wonder, how does it feel to land a silver medal when you've spent 4 years training and you're throwing your best tricks and you're throwing your best technique and you're fucking nailing it, and then you get a silver? It is still a privilege. I'm not negating that. Don't cancel me for this, guys. Like I said, it's kind of a bit of a hot take. But I actually, on one side of things, was like, well, the reporter just like asked the question we were all wondering. Not all, but I was wondering. I actually wanted to know, like, does it feel like, fuck, I should have got gold and I didn't, or I could have got gold and I didn't? Or does it feel like, hell yeah, I just got a silver medal in the Olympics? Eileen, I think, is a different situation because she is so highly decorated. She did get 1 gold. She did get 2 silvers. I actually didn't get a chance to prep for this episode like I wanted to, so I didn't look into like her other medals. I did look into some other background about her. She's really cool. She actually is an American who competes with China, but because China offered her, 1, a fuck ton of money. And for everyone who hates on her for going with China, don't act like you wouldn't do the same thing. Unless you're like, I'm grateful. Oh God. Well, this is unfiltered for a reason. I am grateful to be an American. There is a lot of privilege in this country. There are a lot of problems and a lot of things that are wrong and a lot of really evil people in the government. I will never deny that. I mean, conspiracy theory 101, I could be a professor for. We're not going to get into that. But at the same time, I think if any country was offering you the amount of money she was offered to compete for them, and she is part Chinese, part American, I think anyone would do it. So that was like the one thing. Like I said, I looked up her background a little bit and I thought it was cool. She made the best decisions for herself, and she fucking goes out there and rocks it and kills it regardless of who she's representing. So hell yeah, go you, Eileen. But anyway, I actually thought it was a valid question from a reporter. I just think that question maybe would have been better suited for a man given like the climate of, like I said, the world and the circumstances and all of that. But she fucking locked in that gold. She got 2 silvers. Like, I wish, maybe I'll look into this. I wish I knew more about her habits to get there and her prep to get there. But what I will say is, based on her interview, like, she is confident, she is strong, she is a girl's girl, and she is not taking shit from anybody. And we need to go out in the world with that confidence and own it ourselves. And I also think it's a fascinating lesson in, how do I want to articulate this? Being grateful for the opportunities in front of you. As she mentioned, like anybody getting a medal in the Olympics, it's a life-changing opportunity. I also think it's a really great lesson in being proud of yourself, because this is especially for the competitive ones. We all want to be number one. We all want to be number one. But that doesn't always happen. And I mean, we've seen some insane things. This is something else I wanted to look a little more into before this episode, but didn't. I'm sad I don't remember the guy's name, but best believe I'm going to know the guy's name after this. I did ask ChatGPT. I have it somewhere in these notes, but I'm not about to scroll through all these notes on camera in front of you. Like, they're here. But like, whatever. The guy that scored, it was in, oh my God, what's it called? Halfpipe. It was in halfpipe skiing. Actually, no, I'm sorry. It was big air skiing. He pulled a damn 98.25. 98.25 out of 100. That's insanity. Evidently, he only managed to pull silver. Now, I didn't look in to everything that happened with that, like I said. So, oh my gosh, this is what's so funny about camera. If you're watching me, camera's always mirroring, and I always like mess things up when I try to fix my look for the camera. Anyway, whatever. I don't care. It's supposed to be funny and stupid, but 98.25. And when I saw that replay on YouTube, he threw the trick he threw was insane. Insane. I'm gonna get a lot better at these technical terms. I'm sad. Like, I normally am more aware and articulate and like comprehensive to what's going on in the Olympics, but just right now my life is like a hot mess, and we're trying to get it together, which is also like the funny part of this not funny, but the ironic part of this podcast launching when it does. So I haven't been able to fully pay attention to things like I want, but I still make sure to dip my toes into the things that excite me, like snowboarding in the Olympics and all of that. And when I saw that he got the silver, that was the first question in my mind, looping it back in. I was like, oh, he just threw an insane trick, and he did it so well. He almost got a perfect score. Like, that's 1.75 points away from perfect, and he still got silver. So I actually was curious, like, did he feel sad about the silver or accomplished? So then when I saw and that was just a personal thought I had. And then I not randomly, but again, ironically saw the Eileen Gu. I don't know if I'm saying that right, so I'm sorry. Don't reprimand me. But when I saw her interview and response, and the internet's response and reaction to that, I did think it was fascinating. Even though I did agree with most of it, there was that other side of me that was like, well, actually, there were a few athletes that I wanted to ask that same question to. But anyway, like, these athletes are just, they're just so admirable. I mean, let's talk about the guy that was snowboarding or skiing. I don't remember. It's a little bit of a blur, but he was doing it with a broken rib. And can you imagine the composure you need to have to do, something so quote unquote dangerous under such high pressure conditions and like keeping it together. You spend 4 years training for this one moment. And if you mess it up, it's like you have to wait 4 more years to redeem yourself if you're lucky enough to get that chance. I really admire these people. And I think that like the Olympics, when you look at it from like a bigger picture, like I really think it is a lesson to us that it's like, go forth and do something you love. Put your all into it. But don't expect to do well. Fucking send it. Do everything you can to be the best. But also appreciate your ability in the things that you do. Because you are... I'm going to steal a quote from this friend of mine on the internet. And I'm not going to call her out here because I don't know if she would like that or not, but I'm happy to like tag her, whatever, like shout her out like later if she ever sees this or wants it. But like, you are a badass, you are worthy, and you are loved, and you can do anything you put your mind to. And even if you don't come out as number one, that doesn't mean that you're still not badass, you're still not worthy, and you're still not loved. And I think Eileen Gu is a great example of that. So on that note, what else do we have? Like, it's funny because I also want to talk a little bit about Eric Dane in this, which we're not getting to yet. But one of the notes I have is like, the Olympics is also a really great lesson in living in the moment. You prep so hard for it. When you're there, that's your moment. That's your chance. And you just got to live in it. Whether it's good, it's bad, it's ugly, it's impressive, whatever it is, be in the moment. Love it. Feel it. Give it everything you've got. And worry about what happens next after what happens next happens. I'm going to turn my low battery off so my phone stops shutting off on me. Boom, boom. Okay. So I want to go, there's like a few things I want to talk about. Mark McMorris, that's the guy that competed with the fractured ribs. He's a good lessons in resilience versus ego, right? He's landing technical runs, he's executing. I think it's crazy. Like, could you imagine what happens if you caught an edge or like made one? If you don't ski or snowboard, first of all, it only takes one little error to mess something up. And again, sometimes it's out of your control. Now, the Olympics, it's a little bit more in your control because it's not like you have other people on the mountain. But if something could have gone wrong, that fractured rib could have gotten way worse. Apparently, like, some of the background on this guy, he survived a near fatal backcountry accident a couple years ago. He's had other broken bones. He's had a collapsed lung. Like, regardless, he keeps showing up. He keeps coming back, and he keeps landing on the damn podium. That's crazy to me. Okay, sorry. Next. We'll edit this part. Okay. So we're going to get back to Mark McMorris for 1 second. Here we go. All of those things that he endured shows up and makes it happen every time. And it is also like, yeah, we're talking about extreme athletes, but that's also just life. Life is, and Eric Dane is actually another great but very different example of this. Like, life happens, things happen, and you have to move forward with resilience and dignity and everything you frickin' have. So on one hand, right, this is a really high level of that resilience. a level that most of us actually might never experience. And here's the thing, like if you're not an extreme athlete or going through an extreme life circumstance, if you're not an extreme athlete, like, yeah, you probably won't experience it, and that's totally fine. We're not all supposed to be extreme athletes. And if you've never been through an extreme life circumstance that requires that level of resilience, consider yourself lucky, because life is life. And we can talk about, I have a lot of things on resilience myself, but that's not for today. This is fun, actually, guys. Sorry, like, if you're listening and it sounds a little rambly, like, a part of me feels a little sorry, but a part of me doesn't, because this is the most authentic, unfiltered as it's going to get. And by the way, if you're watching the video, I don't have the unfiltered sign up today because I was 20 minutes late to the studio and we're really riding the Hot Mess Express, but we're making it happen regardless. But anyway, like, talking about the level of resilience that you might not understand to achieve and do what these athletes have done, especially someone like Mark with all, like, true. I feel like if I went through an injury that bad, I would be terrified to get back on my board. Now, I'm not an Olympic athlete, so maybe the stakes are different, but even last year when I went to the French Alps, oof, I get the chills thinking about this. Oh, it was almost like my, you know that phantom limb theory? It's like my legs hurt thinking about this. I was in my snowboarding lesson and one of the girls in my lesson just fell, and I don't know what she did. It wasn't even it was like the simplest little fall. And this is nothing against her. This is what I mean by, like, so many things are out of your control. She broke her damn ankle. That's not the part that gives me the chills, although that sucks. And she broke her ankle, and me and the other girls are sitting there and we're like, oh fuck. But we're like, okay, it's fine. Like, we got this, no big deal. But then while we're waiting for ski patrol to help her out, we see more ski patrol come. And this guy, he's screaming at the top of his lungs. And his femur is sticking out of his thigh. I can't. You don't even understand what it feels like to see a bone sticking out of a body and to hear someone screaming. Like, this man in that particular moment probably wished he was dead. Thankfully, I don't want to say it was just a broken femur, but it, you know, he can recover and move on with his life if he has the right mindset and the right work ethic. Or even not. A broken femur won't kill you. It'll just severely cripple you if you don't take care of it. But when I saw that, and I think about the things these athletes go through and they get back on their board, I would never. And I love snowboarding. And maybe I would change my mind. I don't know. But when the stakes are as high as it is for these athletes, it might be a little bit different because that's how they make their money and that's how they make their mark on this world. And, you know, like, that's something Eric Dane talks about, ironically, which we'll also still get into. But there is the line. But there is a line between resilience and ego. And that's something we also want to be very aware of. Now, I don't necessarily, to be an athlete and an Olympic level, you have to have a little bit of an ego. Let's just be honest. I'm in fitness. We all have fucking egos. I don't want to say you can't be in fitness if you don't have an ego, but you always have a little bit of an ego. You're like, I work hard every day and worked hard every day to achieve, like, this level of athleticism or this body or whatever it is. So there's always a little ego, but at what point is pushing through the pain admirable, and at what point is it self-destruction disguised as toughness, right? Elite athletes understand something we don't, and that is they push in a very calculated way. So they train their bodies to withstand stress before they ask their bodies to perform under it. They don't just go out there and wing it like I am with this episode right now with my notes, whatever. But it also, you know, it's just like a good side note and reflection point on, you know, how to push through emotionally without preparation, because there's going to be times in life you have to do that. David Wise, I found it in my notes. He's the guy that scored the 98.25 run in halfpipe. See, I was right the first time. It freaking was halfpipe and not big air, but that's fine. Like, technical precision on par, fluid transitions, no hesitation, at least visibly. huge amounts of amplitude. Yeah, that's whatever. I feel like I already talked about him, but that's just like the level of intensity and repetition and practice and follow through to achieve that is just like crazy. And it actually, here's a fun way to tie this into what this podcast is about in regards to relating it to our own lives. It is a little bit of an uncomfortable realization, right? The body and mind of these athletes have been trained so consistently that like execution almost becomes instinct. It gives us a moment to ask ourselves, how many invisible reps are we putting into our own lives, into our fitness, into our business, into our emotional regulation and our emotional maturity and our financial knowledge and like financial IQ. The word I'm thinking of is like not in my brain right now. I haven't been sleeping very well, side note. So like on top of already being a scatterbrained wall weasel, I'm like an extra scatterbrained wall weasel. And it's fine. I don't really understand why I'm not sleeping well. Like, whatever. We'll work on that as we do. But it's easy to romanticize elite outcomes and to admire elite outcomes, but it's harder to romanticize like the monotony that creates them, right? And I think I actually want to shout out some of my friends. I'm not going to say their names, but if they listen to this, they know I'm talking about them. And if they don't listen to this, well, I'll never know, but I'm going to send them the link to this episode anyway. But I have some friends that have really stepped up in bettering themselves this year. I mean, they not only did dry January, but they're continuing to stay dry. They gave up. Like, we're talking people. And here's the thing. Like, I'm learning that I don't really know like what I'm allowed to say and not allowed to say on this podcast from like a legal perspective. I just talk about my life and sometimes I break rules, but like weed, it's legal in most places. It's illegal in a lot of places, whatever. But like these are people that have like, they did dry January and then they continue to stay dry or drink very minimally in comparison to their previous habits. They've given up weed. They've really sat with their emotions in ways that they haven't in some of them like a decade. And I don't know. I wanted to just shout them out because like I see you guys. And I envy you guys because I'm also trying to do those same things. And I don't think I'm doing it as well as those friends are. And that's something I'm working on with my therapist because I have bad coping skills, which is fine. You know, we all have our things. But that was just like my side note in the fact that it is harder to romanticize the monotony that creates like this just level of like making execution become instinct, right? Anyway, so that's my little Olympic spiel. Before I move on to the next little phase, I have some sidebar things. Actually, I have like a lot of things. Hold on. This is like me real time figuring out. I'm Googling something I want to talk about. Actually, I'm ChatGPTing it, but okay. So here we go. We're going back to where we were at. Oh, fascinating. Well, I rambled about the Olympics for long enough and the points I wanted to make. We are going to talk about like, I have so many things that I want to say today and they all tie in with each other. So before we get into training techniques and habits and the psychology behind like athletes and things like that, or elite performers, I should say, I want to talk about this little funny Thailand story because this is ironically, every episode has had some kind of travel story in it. And it's not supposed to be an outrageous travel podcast. It's just the last 3 years of my life that's been a huge part of my identity because so many other elements of my identity were just like lost or missing or messy. So I did go to Thailand in August. I'm not going to give the whole Thailand spiel. I have so much to talk about with Thailand. But the reason I bring Thailand up after talking about the Olympics is, funny enough, I had a personal encounter with an Olympic athlete. And I don't actually think this person would ever see the podcast, but I'm not going to give I'm not going to give his name, for example, because you can find him on Wikipedia, and like, I'm not trying to expose people or like quote unquote get sued for defamation, even though this story has nothing to do with defamation, but I'm learning that you can't just speak as freely as you like to in public settings. So I'm in Thailand and I'm having a grand old time. And when I travel, so I was in Thailand with one of my best friends and one of her best friends. So automatically they're both my best friends by like association. And so me and my two good girlfriends are in Thailand, and we all have similar interests, but we're also all very different people. Like, one of us had money limitations in comparison to the other two. One of us liked to party less than the other two, and one of us, aka me, just lives for the thrill. So I decided I wanted to hang out with someone who was spending serious time in Thailand. So I'm going to actually keep this on this side so it's easier to reach, but I'm going to do this too. Hold on. Okay. So I wound up meeting this guy in Thailand. He's living in Phuket for 2 years, working as not an English teacher, sorry. He's working as a teacher in Thailand. I don't remember what he was teaching, but that's irrelevant. He actually has a crazy life story. He lives in Thailand right now. He worked in robotics in Denmark. He's from Canada, and we went on this little waterfall hike, and we were swimming in this waterfall, and he takes his shirt off, and I laugh at him, and he's like, "What are you laughing at?" And just stay with me. I'm like, I thought it was so funny and so stupid, but this was how naive I am. I'm like, why do you have the Olympic rings tattooed on your back? Like, here I am thinking he's just this Olympic fanboy. I'm like, you like the Olympics so much, you have the rings tattooed on your back. And he smirks at me and he's like, you don't know why? And I'm like, no. I'm like, it's kind of funny. Like, what? He's like, also, for those of you that complain I don't look at the camera, I never know what camera to look at. He's like, I have Olympic rings tattooed on my back because that's a rite of passage for people who earned a medal in the Olympics. And I was like, what? I'm like, here I am laughing at you thinking you're an Olympic fanboy because you have the rings tattooed to your damn body. But you're an Olympic athlete who's from Canada, has lived in Denmark, working a very prestigious job, who helped a family member open, this is wild, a coffee shop in Rwanda, and then proceeded to get run over by an SUV in Rwanda. And now you're living, oh wait, I think I already, yeah, whatever. And now, like, whatever. And you were an Olympic freaking athlete. Summer Olympics, like I said, he won the bronze twice. And even if it's just the bronze, still fucking badass. And he never even, what's even funnier about his story, because I was like, we need to talk about this. He wasn't someone who was born and raised training for the Olympics like some of these people were. Like, the sport he competed in was a hobby. And someone was like, you could go pro in this. And he's like, fuck it, let's see what we got. So, the moral of the story is, I had my own personal experience with an Olympic athlete. And I will actually say his personality was really intriguing because the things he found interesting were so different. Like, whatever, I guess I'll be candid because that's the point of this. Like, He was my Thailand. Oh God, I have to be careful now. Technically, I had 2 athletic Thailand flings, but one was different, and there were 2 different islands, so 2 different flings. But he was my Thailand vacation fling, and I just whatever. Like, he was so determined, like these other athletes, and it showed in his personality and the things that he found interesting. Like, one of the dates he wanted to go on, or one of the dates we did go on, was going to a leather store and buying leather to build a sunglass case for his sunglasses, because he had lost the original case and it was true leather, and he felt like that was a really cool way to use his free time. But I did have my own personal encounter with an Olympic athlete. I laughed at his damn Olympic tattoo. And now I have enough clout to say, like, I may or may not have hooked up with an Olympic athlete. But anyway, that was like my little erratic story of the day. But yeah, who would have thought this guy lived so many lives, and I would have gotten to meet him, and I would have gotten my own experience with an Olympic athlete. And maybe it's not as cool as I think it is, or more normal than I think it is, but that's never happened to me before. And I thought it was badass. And again, I thought he had such a fascinating mentality. He, like I said, got run over by an SUV in Africa, and it fucked up his ankle really bad, which affected the sport that was his whole life. Now, he's not anywhere near the Olympics anymore, but that sport still plays a very prominent role in his life in other ways. And I've never seen someone, he just tries and tries and tries everything and anything he can to rehabilitate this ankle. And honestly, like, if you didn't know he had an ankle injury, you wouldn't know, unless you really stared at it and was like, it's like a little shaped a little different, but whatever. So that's my little like blurb on that. But yeah, so I once slept with an Olympic athlete in Thailand, and I laughed at his tattoo, and he was a really cool person and a really resilient person. And he just, like, it makes me really want to run in circles with these people, because they're the people that do up-level their lives. And maybe some of them are forced into it by their parents, or they just do it for the love of the sport. But I don't know. I just feel like part of it's a flex, and part of it is also, you know, I don't know. Okay, I'm gonna have to edit this myself, I guess. Because I'm gonna have to like fix some of this. But he wasn't a chaotic person, he was an aligned person. And I think that's what most of us listening to this are striving to be, a more aligned person. And you might not all be as chaotic as me, and that's fine. But I'm sure you're all a little bit chaotic, because if you weren't a little bit chaotic, you wouldn't be here unless you personally know me and are just here for the support and think I'm funny. Hell yeah, love you if you are. But I'm attracted to elite drive. And I know that based on the people I've chosen to surround myself with and the people I've chosen to date. But I'm someone who does lack elite drive sometimes, and I don't want to anymore. But to the next point, attraction doesn't necessarily equal embodiment. And that's where there's that question of like, you are who your not question, but that's where it's like, you are who your friends are, and you need to ask yourself, am I matching the energy I admire? And am I acting in the way, I don't want to say acting, but am I doing the things that people I want to be surrounded with do? Am I operating at the level that people I want to date are operating at? Right? These are things we need to be real with about ourselves. We're going to jump a little bit back into the habits of elite performers. So when you zoom out, these athletes' habits are not that glamorous, and, you know, they're a little boring. These are things that I think we're all just working on to be better. Athletes are not athletes, right? Like, we want consistent sleep. I already told you I'm struggling with that. We want minimal alcohol, structured training. We're going to dive into that too, because like, I feel like I'm starting over in the fitness world not from a work perspective, but the last 6 months for me, fitness-wise, have been horrible. I'm lucky that I'm still young enough, my body hasn't betrayed me, and that I trained so structured and so consistently and so hard for so long that I had a little bit of leeway. But honestly, halfway through my Thailand trip, I fell off, and that falling off never got better. I don't not work out at all, but I used to be a 5-day-a-weeker, sometimes 4-day-a-week, but 2-a-days, not all 4 days, but you know what I mean? Like, I was definitely training a good 6 times a week, regardless of how many days. And, like getting back to it, not just like the sleep, the alcohol, and the training, but they have recovery protocols, which I have all these great ideas that I need to execute, and maybe you're like me, but we're going to talk about that too in like future episodes. They have dialed in nutrition, and dialed in nutrition is not just about physical performance and physical look. It's about mental performance. It's about health and organ performance and system performance and all of it. So, I don't know. Moral of the story is like, let's really hone in on our fundamentals. Like some of my friends that I'm really proud of are doing. I don't know. My notes say not to wing it, but I think winging it is like, I think it depends on your personality. I'm a big wing it girl. There's a line between winging it, feeling it out, and then tracking, repeating, and refining. So I think that's where most of us lack. We want the outcomes without the tracking, repeating, refining, and the discipline, right? But that's that tension between discipline and desire that we're all navigating. That's also why we're not all Olympic athletes. But we all should always be proud of ourselves. And even the most disciplined of people mess up. I mean, I guess that's like my last little thing. Maybe it's not, but 4 years for a moment, and one mistake messes it all up, and that can happen even if you do have the most elite habits and mindsets. But that's like another thing. Let's talk about the mindset required to operate at an elite level. Elite performers don't negotiate with discomfort. And this is a fascinating statement to me because there's one side of me that is really good at embracing discomfort and is really bold and really brave. But then there's the other side of me that is really bad at embracing discomfort. So I'm good at embracing discomfort when it comes to a story or a life experience. Like, just another quick side note, like, oh my God, I have so many things about embracing discomfort. An uncomfortable situation I was in once, I met a friend in Italy and I flew into Rome by myself, and I had to get from Rome to Naples by myself and had to navigate an Italian train station by myself and navigate Italian taxis by myself. And yes, they do speak some English, but I did study a little Italian before this trip, but it was definitely an uncomfortable situation. But it was an awesome uncomfortable situation. That kind of discomfort I can embrace easily. Moving to a new city, right? Moving to Miami, moving to Tampa, moving to Austin, leaving people I love behind. Those are all uncomfortable situations and growth-oriented situations that I can embrace really well. But when it comes to the discomfort of changing my habits, that's a discomfort I don't do well with, and I still find myself running away from, which was also like another thing I wanted to just ramble about a little bit. Like, guys, part of this is supposed to be raw, real life, and unfiltered. And as I get more comfortable in the podcast world, I'll get more comfortable sharing things and being vulnerable. But we're coming into the third month of quarter one of the year, which for me is the end of quarter one in my 30s because my birthday's early December. So we're coming into the end of Q1 of my 30th year, and most things I set out to do, I didn't do because I didn't want to embrace the discomfort of doing that. I will give myself some grace and some credit because that's important. I said I was going to launch this podcast no matter what. I said I was going to be consistent with this podcast no matter what. Maybe I don't always launch episodes on a Friday, but you know what? That's okay because I'm 4 weeks in and I have 4 episodes out, and 5 and 6 and 7 are already produced. But, well, this is number 6 and number 7 is like maybe not recorded, but still, that's not the point. The point is that was my highest priority, and I did show up for that. Dry January, we already talked about being a fail. Then I tried for dry February. That was arguably an even bigger fail. There's other things other habits that I will open up about as we go, but like I said, we're getting to know each other and vulnerability is going to come in time. The internet's fucking brutal, but I do still run from certain discomforts, even when I know I shouldn't, and I know that those discomforts would do me good, and would elevate me. But that's the thing, right? Elite performers don't negotiate with discomfort, and you and me have to stop negotiating with the discomfort. And those friends that I mentioned earlier in this episode, that's why I look up to you guys, number one. And number two, I'm so grateful you're my fucking friends because it's actually motivating to me. I'm like, oh my God, if they can do it, I can do it. And that's how I want you to feel when you listen to this podcast as it evolves. If she can get it together, if she can build something big, if she can change her own life and expand her own knowledge and expand her circle and up level in all realms, I can do that too. Even if I stumble along the way, right? I'm taking you for that ride with me. Another thing elite performers do, they separate emotion from execution. I feel like these topics are punching me in the face. This is another thing I struggle with. I used to be really good at removing my emotions from the situation and just executing, but, and this is like another whole backstory we'll dive into another time. At that point in my life, I was like a little fucking robot. There was so much trauma and so many things happening that I was a workaholic. I was like super spark noted version. There was one point in my life, and it's not about what you were, it's about who you are and who you're becoming, but I used to be able to separate my emotion from execution. It didn't matter how I felt. I would cry in the gym sometimes. I would numb myself out. I'd work 55 hours a week just to like distract myself from my emotions. I would, like I mentioned, like when I was younger especially, but I noticed how that habit has affected me now as I'm older. But when I was younger, I would numb myself out with weed because I'm like, I have things to do and I can't let these emotions bother me. We're just going to smoke it away and move the fuck on. But separating emotion from execution is a really big thing. If you want to perform like an elite in your life, and it's not an easy thing to do. And what's funny is, like I was saying, I used to do that. And then I was very much in my masculine energy when I would do that too. And I didn't realize that, nor did I think that was a thing. And there was this podcast. I've actually listened to almost every episode of this podcast twice, some of them more than that. It's called Manifestation Babe. Honestly, shout out her. I don't want to steal her clout. Catherine Zenkina's her name. She's like, I don't know. But she very much taught me that, you know, sometimes it is important to focus on how you feel. And I'm one of those, I'm a pendulum. I struggle with finding the middle. I'm an all or nothing girl. So I went from, we're going to have no emotions and we're going to execute everything, to we're going to function based on how we're feeling. And at first, that elevated me until it didn't. And that's something else I struggle with, because it's like, well, when do I push through the emotions and when do I honor them? But at the end of the day, you need to be very real with yourself, me included. And you need to acknowledge, like, my emotions are taking over and this isn't important. And actually, here's like a great real-time example. Filming this today, I booked this out, this studio session, right? This is not my studio, like, let's be honest. I booked this studio session out 4 days in advance, and I did nothing to prep for it because of other emotional things I was going through. I also, like, ironically, my coaching schedule is so light right now in the fitness world, but ironically, the last 4 days, it was not very light. It was actually very heavy, which I love and I'm thankful for. But when I wasn't coaching, I let my emotions take over. Like, I had probably a good 6-7 hours I could have prepped yesterday, and instead I started living in regret and I crashed out and I just spiraled out of control and texted my best friend and my therapist and wound up taking a 2-hour nap because I just couldn't handle life emotionally. And I woke up this morning and I was like, oh my God, I should probably, like, call in sick to the podcast studio and reschedule. And I went into work and I told my coworkers, and they're like, no, they're like, go do this for you. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. I'm just going to show up. And this is actually a great example of me executing separate from my emotions, because I was anxious. I was terrified. I was dealing with other things in my life that made me just, it's not that they made me not able to prepare. I don't like to use that language, but I chose not to prepare for this and I chose to let my emotions take over. But even though I chose to let my emotions take over in that sense, I still executed in showing up today. So, you know, if you don't like this episode because it's too rambly, that's fine. Another thing elite performers, like another mindset elite performers embody, is they don't need constant validation. That's a huge thing in today's society. And again, like, another topic I wanted to talk about kind of ties into this, which we're not at yet. I don't even know if we're going to get to everything I wanted to get at, because this is veering on way longer than I wanted. So who knows, you might get 2 or even 3 episodes with the snowboarding gear. And no sign. Shit. It's fine. You guys know this is unfiltered already, and, like, I can just Photoshop the sign in or something. I don't know. But they don't need constant validation. They're showing up for themselves. And something I was going to talk about, and I was going to do this segmented, but instead, like, Eric Dane. If you don't know who Eric Dane is, he was Dr. Sloan in Grey's Anatomy. He was the dad in Euphoria. I forget the character's name, because Euphoria is one of those shows I binged really fast to catch up on because I had never watched it while doing other things. But the dad in Euphoria, Dr. Sloan in Grey's Anatomy, he was in, like, a ton of other shows. I actually recently found out he was in this show Charmed, which was one of my mom's favorite shows. And now I need to go back and, like, find what episodes he was in, because I've watched all the Charmed episodes with my mom. But anyway, like, he has this video on the internet. He actually just died. Like, I don't know if it was yesterday or the day before. All right, Unfiltered AF fam. Thank you guys for tuning in. We're going to pause here. This has been a really long episode, so we'll pick back up in the next one where we'll dive into Eric Dane's final words and just relate them to life and some of the importance behind the things that he says. So really glad, as always, that you guys popped in. If you can, please like, subscribe, comment. Anything you really feel called to do would be so appreciated. We spent a lot of time doing this. We're having a lot of fun doing this, and I'm so glad you're here. Goodbye, my favorite humans. See you soon.